back to the lecture of Environmental Studies, Semester 2. Dear students, we were discussing third module of second semester syllabus of Environmental Studies titled as Tourism and Environment in past few lectures. We have discussed the meaning, nature as an besides that we have also discussed the classification of tourism on different bases, particularly the detailed classification based on the purpose of visit to the tourist destination, potential for tourism development in India, both natural potentials and cultural potentials in India. We also had a detailed discussion on various challenges before India's tourism sector, and we had a detailed discussion on National Tourism Policy of India of 2002 and 2015-16. Consequences of tourism development, both positive consequences and negative consequences of tourism pertaining to economy, society, culture, and environment, have been discussed in detail with suitable examples in the last lecture. Today, we have the last point of this module, which is ecotourism, wherein we will be discussing the conceptual ecotourism, various dimensions of ecotourism, and also ecotourism potential for India and various strategies that are required to attain the ecotourism development. So, before we start discussing the ecotourism in detail, let us have a look at the learning objective set for this module. By the end of this unit, we will be able to understand the nature, scope of tourism. We will be able to understand the concept of ecotourism. We will also be able to understand different types and potentials of tourism. If you look at the concept, when we say eco, it is something related to ecosystem. System is a set of all organisms and their physical surrounding confined to a particular area or a region. Now, ecosystem can be developed on land or can also develop in water. Based on that, the terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic ecosystem respectively. And then we will talk about the ecosystem. It specifically talks about the biodiversity of a particular region, which needs to be preserved from environmental perspective. And when system and the characteristics of ecosystem and the importance of ecosystem from the viewpoint of tourism development, which is something called as ecotourism. Now, the of this concept will require little consciousness the concept of ecosystem and tourism. Very often, the ecosystem regions of the world are developed as the tourist attractions. When we talk about the ecotourism, wherein the ecosystem is considered to be an important resource and tourist activities needs to be done in a responsible manner, and if it is in a responsible manner, and if the travel of people to certain ecological, they have to behave in a manner which can lead to the least impact on the ecosystem as a whole, and this responsible travel is considered to be the eco tourism. And therefore, when we combine the ecosystem and tourism, that is something can be termed as the ecotourism. Now, by definition, ecotourism is considered as responsible travel to the natural areas. Now, when I say natural areas, here I am relating ecosystem to this, which conserve the environment and improve the welfare of local people. Now, there are important things as far as the concept of ecotourism is concerned. Tourism or tourist needs to be responsible for two things. Number one, conservation of natural environment at the destination, and number two, betterment of a local community, which is naturally the indigenous population at the destination. And therefore, this particular definition given by the Ecotourism Society seems to be complete. International Ecotourism Society, however, had made certain changes in the definition and says that responsible travel to the natural areas that conserve the environment, sustains the well-being of the local people, and involves the implementation and education. Now, this definition adds the implementation part. In the implementation of eco-friendly approach of tourists actually at the place of the destination, and also the institutional efforts in that direction. And education here doesn't mean the formal education, but here the education is in terms of environmental education, ecological education, so that the value of ecology and the value of ecological biodiversity can be understood and perceived by people in a better manner, so as to sustain the quality of natural environment, biodiversity, and also the tourism activity in a given place or a region. Now, let us try to understand some of the important principles of the first principle that goes to the non-consumptive and non-extractive principle of ecotourism. Now, what does it mean? Non-consumptive does not mean that tourists should go and should not consume anything. Here, the meaning is that we have to take care of the natural resources at the destination by the way of minimum destruction to the nature. This is what I mean it. And therefore, the non-consumption, that means the optimum utilization of natural resources available in the tourist destination, will definitely help it to regain its energy, and also to strain or restore the biological diversity or the resource base of the region. And it requires the ecological conscience or the feeling of what is good and bad. The consciousness of our mind needs to be in favor of natural environment, that when we will go to visit to a place where there is a very important places with natural beauty or aesthetic value of nature, and when we feel that the aesthetic value of nature needs to be sustained, needs to be preserved, so that this particular place can be used for tourism activity for long period of time, and when we behave in that particular manner, the change in behavior and the change in perception towards nature or ecological diversity, the kind of consciousness or the kind of understanding of the people is considered to be ecological conscience. Now this ecological conscience of the uh, behavior which is non-consumptive and non-extractive. The relation between nature and human being. Now here human being, we specifically consider it as a tourist community. Now tourist community should behave with nature or should have a very uh, faithful relation with the nature by holding the ecocentric values and ethics. Now, when I say ethics, these ethics are specifically environmental ethics or ecological ethics, right? Like for example, you say that we need to feel that every person is with the basic food they require, or the clean and potable water they need. Similarly, we also have to have the ethical values in mind, that every creature on this planet is uh, have its own right to stay on this planet. Tourism is the combination of conservation strategies, the the betterment of local people, and also the economic profit that is out of tourism activity. So when we combine all these three together, or when we have combined effort to do in these quantities, we can consider it as the practice of ecological tourism. We need not to go only for profit, we need not to go only for conservation exclusively, and we should also not go exclusively on the benefit of local people, but also we have to consider all these three dimensions or three aspects together as far as the ecotourism concept is concerned. We talk about India as an important destination for ecotourism. India, as we have discussed in the last uh, lectures, that India has variety both in terms of ecology and also the culture, and therefore in terms of geographical characteristics, and we have around 12 mega biodiversity countries, rich cultural heritages. We have varied physiographical divisions like Himalayan regions, Kerala, Northeast Asia, and, Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep Islands, and Tenmala, planned ecotourism in South India. Tourism requires to have different approaches, like say uh, development in developing countries, awareness campaigns, outdoor and adventure tourism, awareness and creation of protected areas, rise in global environmental movement, and alternative income hypothesis are some of the important strategies that are required. Ecotourism necessarily requires to control accessibility to to an area, because when we increase accessibility to the destination, places, definitely it results in increasing level of pollution and negative environmental impact on the place of destination. But definitely the number of tourist arrival to that place will reduce and the ecology will sustain in such areas. Hill stations and beaches are not categorized as ecotourism destinations, but these need also to be considered as ecotourism destinations so as to control the uh, pollution caused by tourism, mass tourism in such areas. National parks and wildlife sanctuaries are considered to be most important destinations for ecotourism, which attract large number of tourists to such areas. To take some examples of ecotourism, destinations in India like Munnar in Kerala, Vembanad Lake, these are important ecotourism destinations. Wildlife sanctuaries, river rafting areas, and also the mangrove swamps, these are also the important areas. Hill stations like Kulu, Manali, Dharamshala, Ladakh, and Dalhousie, which are very beautiful places to visit. Then we have, scuba diving and tribal tourism, and also island tourism, which play important role. Uttaranchal is also potentially important ecotourism destinations like Kumaon Himalaya, Nainital, and Garhwal Himalaya. Many way hill hilly stations or hill stations in there. Kodaikanal, one of the very famous destinations in Tamil Nadu, Dolphin Nose Mountain near Doda Betta of Tamil Nadu, near Udak that is Uti. Jim Corbett, sanctuary. Then we have Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary, Gir, crocodiles in Ganges, and then Kaziranga. These are important areas of potentially tourist destinations. Now, Gulf of Kutch, Nilgiris, Great Nicobar, Sundarban Islands, Sundarbans, that is the mouth of the river of Ganga, Nanda Devi, peaks, then Gulf of Mannar and Knocker. These are the areas which are potentially important tourist destinations for ecotourism. And therefore, mangroves also play important role in ecotourism development. We have huge amount of mangroves parts of the nation like Sundarbans. Then we have mangroves in Orissa, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Goa, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Kerala. Coral reef ecosystem are again ecologically sensitive areas which are visited by various organizations throughout the year, like Gulf of Mannar, then Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep Islands, Gulf of Kutch. These are some of the important areas. Also, desert areas and mountain forests, and sea lakes and rivers, and also caves. Ancient caves are considered to be important tourist destinations as far as ecological tourism is considered. There are various forms of ecotourism, like say wildlife tourism that we have discussed, agricultural tourism, village tourism, wherein we have to uh, enjoy and spend our holidays without making any negative impact on such ecologically sensitive areas. Now, when the ecotourism has some guidelines for travelers. Like for example, we have to educate people for about the destination, learn about local history, customs, and culture. Education about the basic language and approach of travel needs to be desired as with the desire to learn, not to just observe and enjoy. Respect towards local community can and etiquettes also can be adopted by the way of appropriate clothing. Then we have sensitivity to being photographed, observe local customs and all in a detailed area. Also, they avoid outstation displays of the whales, for example, camera, jewels, flexible your expectations. These are some of the important areas. So this is all about the uh, activities to be conducted under ecotourism. So that's how we will the end of module number 3 to point. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. हॅलो. हां बोला काकू. बोला बोला काकू.